video has several art creations in it. This first one is a photograph of the line art I did on the original player character sheet for a new 5e Dungeons & Dragons High Elf Gestalt character for a Curse of Strahd campaign I may actually get to play in rather than Dungeon Master. As normal, I did the line art on its own layer and the other colors underneath, using different flat color layers, using clipping masks and alpha lock in order to help me do the artwork faster and easier. As I may be the only player in this campaign, she was built as a Gestalt character, which is extra powerful. She counts as only a level 1 character and will level up as usual, but is both a level 1 rogue and a level 1 artificer. I have plans at level 3 to turn her into a battlesmith, but I'm not sure exactly what kind of rogue I'll go with. I'm using the Unearthed Arcana for Artificer that was recently released. I like elves and wanted the bonus cantrip, so I chose High Elf. I also really like the other elven racial traits such as use of longbow, 4 hours long rest, and immunity to magical sleep. But not just for power gaming reasons. I wanted someone who was very intelligent and dexterous, and I really like elves as a race in general. I'm hoping to play her as a very intelligent space character. I may do a full body with her magic tools at some point later. Completed during Mermay, but not shown until now, this is one of the final racial profiles to finish all the many merfolk species for my world of Imagiscria for Project Imagiscria. I'm very happy to say I got all the racial profiles done this year as planned. I'm very happy with the pose, composition, and flow of this piece, and I used my old notes from when I originally wrote out some of the races for this world that I had never properly filled in order to get the description correct for the Keystsplendia merfolk. The Keystsplendia are meant to be one of the main and most common races of merfolk on the world of Imagiscria, and are famous for artisan crafts. They use minor magics to keep their free-flowing hair free of knots, and nobles are considered fancier for having longer fins on their arms. Often they can get a little caught up with this sort of vanity, but individuals vary, and every culture is different. About 30% can magically turn into a land form, which allows them to grow legs and go on to land, holding their breath for long periods of time. Gill slits on the ribs, slightly webbed ears, webbed fingers, and 2 stabilizing fins on the back, as well as tails similar to what you see here. According to my notes, there's supposed to be 10 different tail tip fin types. This merfolk profile, also made during Mermay, is one of the remaining ones for Imagiscria. The Govostan, a large-size saltwater only, eel-based merfolk with no hair on the body. Primarily nomadic, they go around for different events, such as different migrations and availability of prey and magical events that occur in nature. They have very long tails and are able to dive very deep into the water with no ill effects. Also, they have bioluminescent markings, which you'll see at the end. I used an art pose app to help me get this interesting pose, except I didn't get the far arm as correct. I ended up warping the duplicate of the near arm because that actually seemed to work best for me. I did this grayscale version on a couple layers first and saved it separately because I thought it was interesting. I then used the Gaussian blur ability that you can do in Procreate in order to make the shadows more fuzzy. I was able to go back over to make more distinct shadows so that there's a difference between sharper shadows and more blurry shadows. I filled in the background around the figure here, and as you can see, I did a deep water background behind it. I used a freckle brush I downloaded to get the markings. Using filters and overlays, I made it on multiply, more turquoise and dark, and on a layer on top, I set things to a bright lighten layer and used luminance brushes. Light brush. I painted in bioluminescent creatures in the background and all the bioluminescent markings. I'm using Procreate to create time lapses to create transitions. I find it better between different sections. Filling out the last of the races of merfolk on Imagiscria, this is the sauce coal, a small size saltwater only, Arctic and cold dwelling magically immune to cold, either magical or mundane, merfolk. I base them on seals and sea lions. Using this as a starting point, I made sure to have everything about the appearance match up with what I think seemed logical for cold dwelling. I made sure that she was a little chubby, and I also wanted the arms to look a little short proportionately. I decided to go with no head hair and external ears, but to keep them on the small side. I also decided tusks was good because that made me think of walruses. I used separate layers and did a colored line art, as well as used that same freckle brush I mentioned before and a snow brush to create different spots. On a separate layer on top, I used some darker turquoise color to make her look more like she was in the water. I did a fairly simple background. This next one is a fan art that was also done as an expression practice, in a series of expression practices I've been doing from reference I've been gathering. The character is Tuesday Tops, which I figured out after clarification from the player on my Instagram post. It's fan art from The Descent Episode 1, a D&D event held recently, played by Kelly Lynn D'Angelo, a forest gnome druid. I took several screenshots from the episode to use for expression practice, and this one was definitely the best of all the photos of all the characters in that particular game. With some of these expression practice posts, I'm going to change them more into my original characters and races, keeping more or less the actual features or look of the person it's based on. This one was more meant to be a conversion into the character that was being portrayed. Some of the custom background animations here are actually animated time lapses done in Procreate, including the ones that look slightly animated. Procreate's a very useful tool. This is another in my series of expression practices. Here I tried to capture some of the likeness of the original people while using it to draw good facial expressions and to use it to draw out one of my own original ideas. This here is the example of the Failing race, which is a half cat person, half halfling race. Small size, the same size as halflings, this is meant to be a Dungeons & Dragons playable character race that is present on certain worlds I invented and is fun and easy to add into any worlds. I'm considering finding a way of publishing some of these races I made up, as well as creatures, to see if there's a way of possibly making money off all my hard work. I think I'm going to look into publishing a book. Otherwise, I might look into publishing on the DM's Guild, except that I've heard you can't then publish it as a book after you've put it up on the DM's Guild. The photo was a post I found on Twitter of Sumali Montano and Liam O'Brien. It was such a wonderful picture that was full of tender expressions and real joy. I wanted to capture that for individuals of this race. They're known to be very happy, and I also just really like the photo. I changed them to wear more traditional clothing for the races, and I went through a bit of trouble designing the actual designs for the clothing. Using separate layers, the line art being on a layer on top, I solidly filled in and used alpha lock and clipping masks. Directly on the base color layer on alpha lock, I filled in the skin tones. On separate layers above that, I did the clothing, then the hair, then I did a top layer which had details like the very top highlights, the eyes, and some of the other details. I went back and forth between the layers, doing whatever felt natural on different layers. I also used previously created color palettes, and I looked at the reference photo to get a lot of the colors, but I did not color pick any of the colors used in this piece. I just chose them from the color wheel and from previously created color palettes. I used a couple texture brushes for some of the fabrics, but mostly I used a few different brushes I've been enjoying using lately, including my Adobe brush, which is a downloaded free brush. In the end, the woman looks more like Sumali than the man looks like Liam O'Brien, but I was aiming more for the expression than an exact likeness, so it doesn't really matter. I'm very happy with the end result because I think it conveys the expression and the race very well, which were my two goals, with a sub-third goal of having the good clothing. I decided against the purple background I originally thought I wanted and went with more of a very grayish beige background, which had been what I'd been working on the whole painting. I added the top highlights on the very top layer and thought about adding a bit more darkness in, but went against it. I've been creating these backgrounds and transitions in Procreate, which show a painting process using the time-lapse feature. Due to the videos getting off schedule, I delayed an extra week so that this one would be more on time, and I'm still working on the new end animation. Hoping to have many more new videos out soon. Another reason for the delay was I also got sick again. I'm hoping to get things back on track and hoping maybe to stop getting sick quite so often. But life gets in the way sometimes. I hope you look forward to future videos. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.